tomorrow. On the search for silence. Life is short and violent. Take my soul from me. I don't want to bleed. Bullets need minds more than sorrows. The dead man waits for tomorrow.
Guys, you're not gonna believe it! There's drama and infighting in the Libertarian Party! He has a plan, she has a plan, and you get to pay for it regardless.
The best way to get someone motivated is to stand for something strongly, deeply, passionately.
Subscribe to Disenthrall. Do as you're told.
Greetings, party members! Welcome back to Disenthrall. I will be your host, Patrick Smith. I'm gonna have a fun one today. So, we have a special guest with us. I'm honored to have the Sherry Voluntary. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm feeling a little small today.
Yeah.
But I have my normal size coffee cup, so
It's like an Oompa Loompa, Patrick.
How's it going? How you been?
I've been pretty good. I've been actually pretty great, honestly. Things are going well and moving along. So
all right, kick ass. So
yeah, it's about time.
So the first thing I want to do is I want to announce from down here in the corner that we have a new audiobook just hit Audible, and the supporters of the Disenthrall and Anarchast shows have already had early special free access to it, by the way. But for those of you that weren't a supporter or are not a supporter, first of all, disenthrall.me/support, link in the description. But the audiobook has just hit Audible. Let me pull it up here. I should have already had this ready. This is the new latest and greatest book by Shepard the Voluntarist.
Oh, cool.
Called, and let me just pull it up here. I should have had this ready.
It's okay.
On Amazon. It's called Anarchy Exposed.
Nice.
Terrible. I should have this ready. A former police officer shares his investigative journey. Pull this up here. There you go. I'll put a link in the description after the show is over. Oh, sorry, Sherry, you're so big. I can't see. Okay, there we go. So
I'm working on it.
It's not her fault. It's not her fault.
It's my genetics, y'all.
I did it to her. Anarchy Exposed. A former police officer shares his investigative journey. Guys, this is a really cool book. Again, written by Shepard, who you've seen on this show multiple times, who you'll see on again soon when we talk about it.
Sweetheart.
I was honored to have been asked to do the audio performance for this audiobook. It's really good. It's not a long book. It's definitely worth a listen to hear how a police officer kind of talks and works his way through the logic of coming out of that Blue Line gang and into the world of ethics and voluntarism. So definitely go check that out. I'm going to fix this size issue. This is not right. Hold on. This is not okay. We cannot.
I love the fact that your coffee cup looks so huge.
It looks like a normal coffee cup.
Compared to you.
You would hold this coffee cup, right?
Yeah. I mean, normally you drink from a water pitcher, so.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let me fix this before we go any further. Oh,
now I would love to listen to that audiobook by Shepard, because I mean, what a great to have the perspective of someone that has been in that gang that people so admire come away from that and to come out of that, you know, there's a lot of incentive to stay within that because you have a lot of power and you have a lot of people up your ass all the time, right? So that says something about Shepard, and I think everybody can tell he's a real sweetheart. But also that, you know, just the process of that it takes for people to come out of it, and then there's hope. Like there's hope that people will wake up. Like they have to wake themselves up for the most part, but they will do it.
There was
some of them.
One of the most powerful moments I've ever had in an interview on this channel was with Shepard. We were talking through his history as a police officer and his transition over his lifespan towards voluntarism. And there was this one point where we were talking about like restitution for his victims, his very real victims of threats and coercion during his time as a police officer. And he literally just, you know, looked at the camera and apologized. Wow. Like
That's
what
incredible.
What a man. It takes respectability and balls and integrity and it was
all
huge.
the things. Yeah. I think, and that's, you know, not I don't know what you're getting off your topic or whatever, but
I can see how big it is.
Right. Patrick, well, I didn't know it was that kind of show. To sort of get into what Jordan Peterson type stuff, and I don't know how you feel about Jordan Peterson. I really have a lot of respect for a lot of what he said. And you know, I think a big part of why people are so looking for authority in their lives is that there aren't a lot of really good men out there that are willing to be principled and be good fathers and good, you know, leaders within a community. And people are starving for it. And I think that is very powerful. And it says a lot about, you know, a man who can apologize when he's wrong that's a great characteristic. And I think that's something that we are definitely missing in our society are men who really feel empowered to be men and to carry through the characteristics of a man and not feel like they have to be ashamed of that, you know, or they're constantly looked at critically by, you know, certain groups. I know it's different in different parts of the country too. So,
well, you know, really cool. And feel free to opt out of answering this for sure, because we didn't exactly talk about it beforehand. But I'm curious what your dating experience has been like, and what's the dating pool look like in terms of men right now. I've been out of that game for 14 years at this point. Yeah. So I'm trying to look at it. What's it look like?
Yeah. Well, I was out of it for about 25. So yeah, it's very. I don't know how different it is because I was 18 when I got married, but there are a lot of statists that draw very hard lines. Like they draw very hard lines, a lot of them. I've had people who, you know, they'll on their little profile, it says, you know, if you don't like Trump, then don't bother. Or if you're not vaccinated, don't bother. You know, like there's these hard lines for everyone. What's really been interesting in the pool of gentlemen that talk to me, I've had like a former CIA terrorist task force agent, a former, like he said he was a federal agent. He didn't really say what it was, and they could be lying, but and like people who are all, you know, these colors don't run, and the only two people who have died for you are Jesus and the American soldier. You know, like I just know, like that's an easy. Sometimes they work themselves out, but there aren't a lot of like. It just seems like a lot of people are very polarized to their politics before they even like. They'll say they want to be open-minded, you know, and everything, but really when they're looking for, like they put in they're very, which I think is great. It saves my time. So
yeah, I mean, I guess it would be a time saver, right? If they're
yeah. What was a Democratic Socialist? Yeah, that was a fun one. I'm like, it said he was a Democratic Socialist. And I was like, nope, not responding to that one. I love it.
Is it swipe right or left? Which one's the reject?
I don't use that particular site, so I don't know.
Swipers? Okay. Yeah.
The Tinder or whatever.
I met my wife right before all that hit. We met on Match.com. So it was.
Did you really?
It was the beginning of like internet matchmaking and dating, but before it was all just about like hooking up or whatever. The hookup sort of culture was hitting.
Yeah,
so,
that's what I think Tinder is, right? Like, I feel like that's just hookups.
I don't know. I haven't used it, so I don't know. You'll have to tell me. But yeah. What's up, Jay? Good to see you. What's up, Jeff? Adam? Welcome in. Welcome in. So we're probably going to have a little bit shorter of a show today. We're not going to run 2 or 3 hours like we did last time, but we're going to pick up a thread that we talked about briefly in the last show with Christian and Shepard. And the thread that we talked about in the last show was that Justin O'Donnell guy, who I had never heard of at the time, had announced that the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire's executive committee voted to expel Jackie Perry and terminate her membership he said the cause was for NAP violations by doxing the chair. And of course, the discussion at that time was about doxing not being a NAP violation, because all it is releasing private information, which we can talk about if you think that's an interesting discussion to have with you, Sherry. But I assume you understand that, or not. Like, do you disagree?
I do. I get that it's just information, and that's generally public information. My problem with doxing is it's so slimy. Like, something can be, I guess, ethical in that way, but still slimy. And I, for my own personal principles, would never dox anyone, because I don't want to be, have a responsibility in my heart and mind about someone getting harmed for me releasing their private information. Because once you release that into the world, people, who may not have ever heard of this person, but follow me or whatever, and might be off their gourd, then go and hurt this person or their families or something. And that's just not something I would be willing to risk. But I mean, I get that it's just information, yes, but I think it's a pretty shitty way to be. Agreed. If that makes sense.
Reckless, shitty, and reckless is another good word for
reckless.
it, right? It's like drunk driving. It's reckless. It endangers people around you, but it's not a NAP violation, right?
Right. That's exactly what I was going to use. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, there are no victims until there's victims. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Like, and it has to be like actual drunk driving, not like you're 0.0001 over our false limit that, a man Patrick size had a beer with dinner or 2 and he's not going to be drunk. Like that's just retarded. But yeah. You're all big again.
Ooh. All right, it's that kind of stream tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm on, y'all. It's me. My son says that I have a special way of making anything weird. So kind of true.
All right. So that was the tweet that we talked about last time, because I always find interesting discussions when leadership in the Libertarian Party has no concept of the principles that their organization is founded on. It illustrates something that I say all too often, which I'm going to attempt to make this show not just unilaterally focused on, because I've talked about this so much, how I think in general the Libertarian Party is very much likely a net negative for liberty. Likely. I can't prove this empirically because the data is too hard to acquire, but it seems to me to be a honeypot that traps people that become disenfranchised with the R's and the D's, and they're ready to disengage from the system. But oh wait, right before they disengage from the system, they see this other party that claims to be this alternative that will actually be able to bring about liberty in our lifetimes. And so people then get hooked right back into politics. Right. And sink another 10 or 15 years of their lifespan into activism that generally works out to be a net nothing towards actual liberty.
It seems to me like it muddies the waters quite a bit. There are so many people within the party who have never even heard of the philosophy, or people not necessarily within the party, but people in the around the country that call themselves libertarians because they've heard of the Libertarian Party and they've heard the propaganda of the Libertarian Party, like, not left, not right, just center, like it's some sort of centrist position between these two, and it's not. So I think that it really muddies the water, and it draws people to this conclusion that they're, like you hear people say all the time, well, everyone's a libertarian. And like, if they just like, no, they're not actually. And it does mean something. And so I think myself too, that it's a net negative. I used to feel differently. I used to feel like, well, if they would just use it properly, right? If they would just use it as a platform for radicalism. But then I realized you don't need it. Dave Smith, who is very involved in the party, and I personally think he's okay. He doesn't need that platform. He already has a platform. He was on Fox News or whatever it is, Fox with Kennedy and stuff like that before he ever got involved with the party. So he doesn't need the party for that platform. Nobody really does anymore. So it's an antiquated thing, and I agree. I don't think it's a net positive.
What's up, Ben? Good to see you. Ben White in the chat. So,
yo, Ben.
It's going to exist. And as long as it's going to exist, I tend to agree with Rothbard and Jeremy, by the way. Jeremy Kaufman, who is part of the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, which is what we're about to talk about in this show. I've listened to him talk about it, and I think he has the right idea. If you're going to participate in Pahtay politics, then it should be in a uniquely principled, loud way for many reasons. You guys have all heard me talk about this before. If you're going to get involved, just like I did for the Not Governor thing several years ago, there is absolutely no reason not to front sell and front load your principles, because your principles are the only thing that will get you any attention, and it's the only thing that will differentiate you from the other Pahtays that everybody's paying attention to. Where I might differ from a lot of people that even do go that far is that I also think that a healthy respect for libertarian principles also should lead party members to have a healthy disrespect for the party and the process. Like, you should not be there to engage legitimately with the government and the populace in terms of politics. It's a disgusting, vile, manipulative, force-filled process. You should be using it, not participating with it. And you should sort of have a healthy awareness of how disgusting a thing it is to engage with and to, be amongst. And I think the best Libertarian Party members are the ones that realize that it's kind of it's a weapon that is able to affect the world in positive or negative ways. So they have a respect for its ability to do things in the world, but it's not like something that they're proud to whip out and be a part of. Or I'm probably not explaining this well, but it's like there should be a healthy disrespect for the party and its politics. It shouldn't be a badge of honor for a libertarian to be involved in politics and voting and all the stupid games that they do.
But they actually seek political power. That's the thing. Like, I know, like you did with your campaign in 2016, when I ran for governor in Tennessee, I call myself the alternative candidate. That, I actually told people not to vote and that I didn't want the job. And I think that it kind of made a lot of the pragmatists or the people who are involved who really actually want political power upset, because I came in third place in Tennessee and that got, some attention. And, telling people not to vote with an actual real libertarian message and just saying, look, it's a rigged system. And why do you want to force people to do the things that you want? When you legitimize force, you legitimize its use against you. So if you don't like what they're doing, then you shouldn't do it. But that's most people's argument for getting involved is, well, the government's gonna, it's like the Spooner defensive voting argument, which I love Spooner, but I think he was wrong about that my dad used to say, if you play in a coal pile, you're going to get dirty. And it's the same thing. If you play in that game, then you start making compromises on your principles. And I'm all about drawing lines. And I think this past year has been for me very transformative in that way, where I'm less and less willing to give people a diluted version of what I think, because they're not going to like me anyways. If people are going to hate you because, you say taxation is theft or whatever, you don't believe in the government process, they're going to figure that out eventually. There's no reason to be this pragmatic approach unless you want political power. And I don't want political power. I want to live free in the world and be who I am. And I have every right to do so. And so I'm just going to say it like it is, because like you said, front load it. What's the point of playing around? Let's just get to it. Let's hustle. Let's, whatever they say, let's rumble.
Yeah. Yep. What's up, Decompiler? I see you over there in Odysee. Hopefully the stream is working better today than usual. Yeah, so that was basically the thing I say about the Libertarian Party every time I talk about it. So I wanted to try and take this in a different direction today as illustrative. So we talked about Gary Johnson's tweet in the last video telling us that the child labor thing. I tried to pull up the child labor tweet because it's germane to this discussion today, but it was deleted. Right. I'm assuming by the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire.
Party. I love that.
Following the drama that we're about to discuss. I want to preface this talk about the drama with the lesson that I hope people take from this is a lot of the people involved in the party are involved in it for this drama, for this gamesmanship, for this political war that goes on constantly, for these little infights, for the notoriety that comes from fighting in the little spats and the divisions.
A lot of dopamine hits.
Yeah, it's like sports for nerds or something. I don't know. It's and that's exactly like what this is. This is going to be talking about a division that began when the guy running the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire's Twitter posted that child labor tweet that we talked about last episode. Following that, on March, April, May, June 7th, the chair of that party's name was Gilletta, and she said that she wanted to resign as chair because of that child labor tweet. And then an unconfirmed person suspected to be the chair of the National Libertarian Party, suspected by me, let's just say, this is a suspect. Like, I don't have proof. I'm not getting into that because I don't care that much. I'm just giving you my impressions. Don't take them to the bank or do your own research if you care that much. But so the chair of the National wrote a letter authored to Gilletta. Gilletta used that letter as a justification to she left the New Hampshire party and then formed, I think, a company, an actual corporation with the purpose of being the new Libertarian Party New Hampshire.
Weird.
And
That's
used the letter from National as justification of her having the preeminent right to be the one to take those actions. And
interesting.
And they've taken over the social media, they've taken over the recruiting tools, and the CRM software, and they're in control of a new entity that So, and you know what, like, it deserves to be said that this is not the first time that this happened by any stretch in the Libertarian Party. I remember during my campaign for not governor, there was a town in Texas that lost control of its social media and some other things to a quote unquote insurgent group of people that were trying to take over the county party, leadership, social media structure or whatever. This shit happens all the time. I mean, it's like
politics.
I mean, the New Hampshire one is one of the larger ones for sure, so it's definitely sort of newsworthy amongst the party. But anyway, so they're calling it a coup from the national, the national, who's led by this dude that's like a pragmatistic quasi-libertarian type. He put out a big letter in response, some of which I can read. But like this kind of attention, this is what I don't like about this story. There's nuggets of important libertarian principle stuff to talk about in here. That's why I want to talk about this story. But giving these people this attention, the chair of the Libertarian National Party, deserves precisely no attention from precisely any of us. So that's why I don't want to do this.
I love it.
So I'm conflicted. That's what I'm trying to say. But I hit the wrong button. Sorry. You're gonna read it. Go ahead.
Gonna read what?
I'm kidding. I hit the wrong button.
I am
okay.
magical, but not that magical.
Yeah, as called in one of the previous show's comments. Okay, so let me read part of this letter. This is a press release letter, whatever, from the chair of the National Party. This past weekend, I was at the Libertarian Frontier Summit in Wyoming, where I saw elected libertarians and a thriving, growing party that is fast becoming what I know all of us hope the Libertarian Party could be. We are taking the lead on a ballot initiative. We've elected people and are well on our way to putting more libertarians in state legislatures. Unfortunately, that is not where the interest and focus of this board and many libertarians online have been. First, some context about New Hampshire. The New Hampshire Party was recently taken over by a faction, group, caucus, whatever you want to call it, that has been making insane statements contradicting our platform and principles, that was trampling their own bylaws to purge their opponents. You like this reading? I don't know.
I do. I love it. It's great.
And was openly planning to not even run libertarian candidates and instead support Republicans. Most egregiously, they even made a statement in support of the pro-Trump mob's actions on January 6th, which I regard as an extremely serious violation of the pledge we have all taken. We did a show on this. This is one of the things that's important to talk about.
What
we did the prags in the Libertarian Party, and by prags I mean the people that don't actually understand libertarian principle.
Right, exactly. The unlibertarians in the Libertarian Party.
Yeah. They called the actual libertarians that were in support of the rebellious stand-up to government nature of the riots at the Capitol. They said that those people were violating the oath that they take to join the Libertarian Party. Do you remember the oath? I mean, you ran in the Libertarian Party too, right? Do you remember the oath?
Yeah. No, I sort of like their statement of principles deal or whatever. I don't know. I was never really that. I would kill myself if I had to do that Roberts of Rules meeting shit. I just don't care about that kind of bullshit. So
yeah. So to actually apply for and join and become a member of the party, you have to take a pledge. The pledge is, I hereby certify that I do not believe in or advocate the initiation of force as a means of achieving political or social goals, which, to the people that are aware of libertarian principle, is the non-aggression principle.
Right.
So what that means is that everybody that's a member of the Libertarian Party has taken an oath to uphold the non-aggression principle, even though most of them have no idea what that means. And Decompiler says, we're only in the party to party.
if that's all it were, if it were just a social club, that'd be far better, in my opinion.
Yeah, if it was a charity club, it would probably bring far more liberty to the world if it did nothing but charity. But anyway, I digress. Anyway, so the Prague half of the party was accusing all the people that supported that rebelliousness against at the Capitol, non-libertarians or oath breakers, because they were
Insurrection.
right. They were using violence to achieve political ends. They were initiating violence to achieve political ends. To which, of course, the obvious thing to point out is that the government initiated the force. Anything done in retaliation to that initiation is called self-defense. You imbeciles.
At least they were going against the right people, right? Like, you know, like when the BLM writers started, when they were attacking the, businesses, I was like, hey, you shouldn't do that. But when they were attacking the police station, I was like, all right, now we got a target. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Legitimate.
So the pledge specifically says you pledge not to initiate violence. It, of course, doesn't say you can't defend yourself, which is what that was, and which is what, all the talk of defending yourself against police and everything else that the prags lose their entire shit over. Literally, they don't even understand the pledge that they took to join the party. And even more absurd and clown world is that the chair of the Libertarian Party also, in saying this, shows the world that he doesn't understand the pledge that he took to join the party. It is comically retarded.
Yeah. I mean, short bus should pull up there. That's for sure. Okay. I'd love to get a little graphic with his head hanging out the short bus.
Oh, shit. I have a button for this. I haven't used it in forever. Here it is. No. There it is.
Yay. Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Oh, you're a white nationalist, I see.
Oh, I have been outed. So, where was I?
Sorry.
Okay. Most egregiously, I'm back to reading. They have made a statement in support of the pro-Trump mob's actions on January 6th, which I regard as an extremely serious violation of the pledge we have all taken. That I don't understand. All this under the control of an individual who does things like tweet about how black people have lower IQs and murdering trans people would be a good trade-off for lower taxes. At a breaking point, and given the extremity of the situation, the LPNH chair, Gilletta Jarvis, determined that this blatant subversion of the party's purposes and lawless actions of the state committee had amounted to their constructive resignation. Little different than if they had all gone out and endorsed Donald Trump, or Joe Biden, basically. Thus, she felt she had no choice but to reconstitute the organization as best she could with the people she could who still supported the mission of the party. Prior to this, Miss Jarvis evidently anticipated a possible fight over control of social media accounts. I wonder why there might have been a fight over social media accounts after you ran off with them. I can't imagine. She asked for, and I gave her, as I've given and would give any state party chair on request, a letter affirming her status as representing the affiliate of the National Libertarian Party, a fact which was not even disputed at the time. These letters can be and are accepted by the FEC, banks, insurance companies, and many others, and I have no authority to refuse to provide a state chair with one. He's covering his ass because he assisted her in taking over the digital assets and social media assets of the Libertarian Party, New Hampshire. And this guy that doesn't understand what the initiation of force is, that is also the chair of the Libertarian Party, is covering his ass. That's what's happening here.
Good old CYA. Leave it to a politician.
Oh, yes. Okay, second, what did I know? I'm on the phone with the state chairs, LNC members, donors, and activists for hours a day. And there are always 10 or 20 crises going on, some real and some imagined. I had heard for some time rumors and various reports that New Hampshire was headed for some sort of schism, almost on a weekly basis. And frankly, that didn't take any inside information to guess at. This ongoing fiasco was happening in full view of the entire LNC and the country. I note that several members raised the issue as a concern at the Chicago meeting and were told in no uncertain terms that the LNC should not intervene or even discuss options by people who are now demanding precisely that. Claims that I was some kind of co-conspirator are false. I do not, as LNC chair, tell state chairs and officers what they should do, but neither was I terribly surprised by what happened. And frankly, nobody on this committee should have been either. The details and timing, sure, but not at all that something like this was coming. Third, what should we do? The actions taken by the New Hampshire Party and its individual members and officers here were theirs to make, and this dispute is ultimately theirs to sort out. It's not our job as the LNC to impose our commands as to who should do what or work with whom or how this should ultimately be resolved. It is certainly not our place to adjudicate state party bylaws disputes. We have no such jurisdiction. Ultimately, if disputed slates of delegates are sent to the National Convention, that's for the convention to make a decision on. What's up, Jim? He said, thanks for the super chat. They put more effort into battling tweets than fighting lockdowns. Okay, well, that's the end of this segment. That just kind of sums it up. Yeah, thanks.
Good old Jim. Yep. Thank you, Mr. Jesus.
Yep. Mic drop. Good job.
I think it's really interesting that they're showing people how the Libertarian Party, anyways, would handle disputes in a Libertarian Party type world. Like, that's terrible. There's no no principles whatsoever.
Yeah. So let me skip ahead a little bit. What is he?
You missed your calling, by the way.
What do you mean?
You could have been like a really good, like one of those mega church preachers or something, or like a. I feel like you need like a top hat and a monocle. Like when you read this and you finger wag and everything, like I think it would be, it's most excellent.
Most excellent. Yes. Quite right. Quite right. Fourth, what do I think as an individual? I have been reluctant to share this because any of us rushing out a personal position is at odds with this committee engaging in deliberation and sober judgment. But now that Miss Harlos has poisoned the well with a kangaroo court interrogation of Miss Jarvis, and public wild accusations have escalated this situation to make it an existential crisis, means we are past that point. So here is some of the tone I normally say for IRS attorneys or Republicans and Democrats. So anyway, they're upset that she was doxxed, and I think rightfully so. And I said this in the last show. I would not want to be part of any organization that allows its members to dox each other. Now, this is not a NAP violation, as they accused, and I'm pretty sure that if their bylaws say no NAP violations, that might have been a bad move or an invalid move to use the bylaws banning NAP violations as justification to expel somebody, because again, doxing is not a NAP violation. But still, I'm not really upset about it because I wouldn't want to be in an organization that allowed that NAP violation or not. Doxing is an asshole thing to do, like Sherry was saying earlier. So he's basically coming. Yeah. He's basically coming to her defense. Right. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was. Yeah.
So what this is really coming down to is the Mises Caucus is growing to the point in the Pahtay where they're starting to piss the Prags off because the Prags are losing right now. And and that's what he's about to talk about by saying, the reality is that our party faces a binary choice between two very different visions and some very different mutually exclusive principles. Correct. Principles and non-principles. Those are mutually exclusive. Yeah. Correct. You got it.
Exactly.
On the one hand, it's been called a takeover. But more honestly, it is the destruction of the party as we know it. The end of a Libertarian Party worthy of that name. On the other hand, I have to talk like this because it's such language.
I did the language. Yeah.
Doxing is not theft. If I have your info, you have it too. One for me and one for you. That's what copies can do. God, man, he's paying us and providing limericks. So
I know.
This is double value.
That's pretty good. That's good old Jim.
Yeah, so, okay, but more honestly, it is the destruction of the party as we know it, the end of the Libertarian Party, worthy of that name. On the other hand, are libertarians from across the entire spectrum of the party who prags and radicals and audacious and even many Mises rank and file who oppose takeovers and destructive messaging and purging those who defy such demands and instead want to focus on building up the party and electing principled libertarians. And I have no problem saying I am with them. So, and in so long as I am a chair, he said the words, never mind. And so long as I am chair, I will support them. Because the alternative is not just bad for the party. It means the party becoming something I could not and would not support and would not tell others they should support. Good. 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 It needs to become something that you would not support because the thing that you support is pointless, worthless, probably worse than worthless because of all the things I said earlier when I was talking about the Libertarian Party being a honeypot for activists, for people that are wanting to change the world. This guy, and the type like him, the type that agree with him, suck these people in, these people that have precious activist hours. They want to spend their time and lifespan and resources doing something to make the world a better place, and then they just shit away all that effort and all that precious activist attention span and lifespan and time invested, and they just waste it all, and they burn people out, and then the people give up on everything. They just kind of ignore all kinds of activism after that.
I think I've heard from probably at least 10 people over the past few years how, it really does burn them from being interested in even any kind of libertarianism after being in the party. They just get so jaded by this kind of drama and infighting that they think it's libertarians. But what it is that you have things that are libertarian and things that are not. Like people say, well, that you're just a gatekeeper. Yeah, I'm a fucking gatekeeper. Okay, sue me. Like there are principles and then there are things that are against those principles. And if you advocate for things against those principles, you are not that thing. You are not a libertarian if you want wars and, taxes to pay for things and all these different all this different stuff. So I think that that's probably one of the saddest things is it kind of just kills that passion in people to live principled and to care about principles and things. They just sort of get jaded from it. And the other thing is like the destruction of the party as we know it. Well, the party as you know it is not libertarian. So it's not the party that was started, as far as I know. It was developed to give a platform to radicals, to actual libertarians, to give them a platform within the political sphere to get those ideas out in front of people, but not to win political power. Like maybe I'm wrong about that, but that was my understanding was that was never really the purpose, was to gain political power. But I certainly wouldn't say this is the party this is not the party of Harry Brown. That's for sure. Or, anyone who had some understanding of what they were actually talking about. If this kind of stuff goes on, if you're calling people who are actually making libertarian positions, they're, saying something like child labor law should be abolished. Well, they should. Parents should be in charge of what their children do and don't do, not the state. That is a very libertarian position. And to frame that as some sort of scary thing that they're more worried about the optics than they are about the truth and the principles. And that's because they want political power. Don't let them fool you. They want to force their good ideas on people just as much as anybody else. So I can't respect that.
And this is a messy, less than perfectly accurate thing, but I mentioned it earlier. When somebody is super excited and pumped and happy to be participating in party politics as a libertarian, this isn't perfectly accurate. This is just something that is a red flag for my gut that says, man, they've probably got their understanding of the principles wrong if they're excited to be a part of that. Like it should be like Like the activism that we do, the only example I can come up with right now is like when we do Feed the Need. Like we go out in the freezing cold. It's uncomfortable. It's often wet. So we freeze ourselves. We work hard all day and for weeks prior collecting donations. It's a lot of work. It's uncomfortable. It's not fun, but it's good work and it's good for the world to do. And that's where we get our enjoyment out of it. That's kind of where I think people should have their heads on. That's the view, the perspective people in party politics, activism should have their head at. Like, look, guys, we all know this is disgusting. So let's just do the bare minimum to check the political boxes to get the people, in the races behind the podiums. Right. But this is disgusting. Like, we shouldn't be trying to build up a political party. We shouldn't be trying to build a voter base. We should just be trying to get our message out there using this ugly, half-retarded vehicle called a political party. That's like the healthy disrespect that I think that a libertarian would have. Right. And when I don't see that, it's like, I think this person might have a misunderstanding about the principles at play. I could be wrong. People think, differently about this stuff. And maybe there are exceptions, but, yeah, I guess that's the point I wanted to make. Do you have anything else you wanted to say on this before we move on to the next thing? What's up, King? I see you over there on Float. Good to see you.
Just to your last point, I think people have to understand that a lot of people get involved in the party, and they're not bad people, right? They want to do something good in the world, and they say that there are problems. But, the party, in my estimation, should be, like, if you're going to call yourself the Libertarian Party, it should be about teaching that philosophy to those people so that they then are empowered with actual knowledge when they move out and do their activism. But I think it's really sad, the misdirection. And I sort of lost my train of thought, but that's okay.
Well, I think Chad in the chat picked it up pretty well for you. He said the only thing they're excited about is sniffing the ring of power. So-called, quote, libertarians are as power addicted as anyone. A lot of them are, because it's easy to be a big fish in that small pond. The pond is so small that it's easy to get to the top leadership positions in it. You barely have to do anything beyond showing up to, certainly, literally all you have to do in a lot of cases, I guess I can only speak for Texas, but from what I hear everywhere else, if you want to be on the
executive committee.
Yeah, the executive committee of whatever county or state Libertarian Party that you want, you just show up and raise your hand at the wrong time, and you get sucked into doing the job. So it's easy to be a big bad in that tiny ass pond.
And they don't really respect. This is something that got me when I was involved in the party, and I went to the one state convention that I went to. Was that they had people stand up who wanted to be candidates, and of course they call it vetting them or whatever, and they vote on whether this person can be a candidate or not. And I think that's how it went. But they had some people stand up and say why they were wanting to be a candidate or whatever. And one guy stood up at the end, and he had been encouraged by the leadership to, he's really excited. He's a new libertarian and he wants to get out there and, make a difference. And the guy stood up and said, well, I've been around for about 6 months now, and I agree with just about everything libertarians agree with. And, then I'm talking to him after, and he couldn't elucidate one libertarian principle for me. Not really. I mean, he knew taxation is theft, but he didn't really, he still thought, well, you need something though, right? Yeah, this guy, he wasn't a bad person. I'm not trying to lambaste him. What I'm saying is that the party didn't respect him enough and doesn't respect libertarianism enough to say, hey, we're glad you're here. We're glad you want to learn. Stick around, figure out what this is. Here, read a book. Here's some books, whatever. Teach him what a libertarian is before. They just wanted to fill a seat. They wanted to have somebody with their little L running in that district, and they wanted to say, if they got him elected, while he's out there saying things that are completely non-libertarian because he doesn't understand what that means. And to me, that's no better than like even the Democrats and Republicans do better than that, right? Like they actually want people who can stay on message. These people, like they just wanted someone to fill a seat. And I feel like that's really disrespectful to him and to the philosophy and to the people he's talking to, because they don't respect the fact that because they carry the name libertarian, that they are teaching people what libertarianism is every time they let someone go out there with that name attached to them. And so I don't know. I just think you should have more respect for a philosophy that I love and that I try to live my life by. I would have more respect for it than to say, and for that person's time and energy, than to say, yeah, you can run. You're a libertarian because you paid your little money and you signed your little name and you're a libertarian now. So they validate non-libertarian thoughts, because when you say to someone, well, that's not a libertarian, you're gatekeeping. Well, no, I actually understand the philosophy and you're new here, right? You should learn something. But by calling them a libertarian right away, they think every thought they have is absolutely libertarian and I'm just being closed-minded. And it's that muddied water situation again.
Yeah, they'll say things like, well, that's my libertarianism.
Right.
But I don't have a problem.
My truth.
I don't have a problem with gatekeeping. I don't see that as a bad thing. When we're dealing with principles, gatekeeping is what principles are about. The principles should be the gate. And in the case of the Libertarian Party, it is uniquely principled. None of the other parties have a principle like the Libertarian Party does of non-aggression, the NAP. And if they're not going to gatekeep around that core principle, then they're not really anything special or different from any other political party. And libertarians shouldn't want to be involved. And not only that, and the last thing I'll say on gatekeeping is that the fight over the principles is what has precisely over the past 30 years has progressed our principles to the point that they've gotten to. It's the fighting, it's the constant back and forth and the teasing out and the thinking and the articles written by all the thinkers and the books and the debates and Walter Block showing up to push the age-old abortion discussion in a new direction with his evictionism. That's a good example. Like that's him. That's him gatekeeping. That's a dumb accusation to make. We should all be engaged in figuring out these principles and refining them and sharpening the edge,
Yeah, some things are libertarian and some things are not. And it's not wrong to say when that's the case. I mean, they've had party people who have run on a platform of pro-war. Like, people who don't understand that libertarianism is necessarily anti-state and necessarily anti-wars of aggression. Like, you cannot... That blows my mind. It blew my mind then. It blows my mind now that anybody would be okay with that. And there were some people who weren't, but those people are... I mean, you had that lady in Texas. I can't remember her name, and I made a meme about her a long time ago. Like, they're just Republicans, basically, or just Democrats. And the reason that they do so well in the party is because they're used to that sort of
Kathy Glass. You're talking about Kathy Glass, aren't you?
Kathy Glass, yeah, that's her name.
I ran against her for the gubernatorial race, and it was spicy. Let's just say,
that's how I got introduced to you.
Oh, really? How?
Yeah, I was seeing you run for not governor, and I would see stuff pop up, and I'm like, hey, this dude's pretty awesome. And so then I started following you, and talking back and forth and stuff. So yeah, it was during that whole thing, and I saw like all that Kathy Glass stuff. It was pretty incredible. But
the thing that you're talking about, though, is why I engaged in it. Like, I engaged in the party process not because I was proud to be in the party. No, that was gross and dumb and mostly a waste of time. But the good stuff that I got out of it was when you slide behind that podium, you get an opportunity to speak our principles to people that haven't heard them before. That's really, really useful. That's good activism. And that's what I was there for. Little did I know at the time that the sinners I was proselytizing to use an analogy, I guess, what's the word? Like as a missionary, you go overseas to where the heathens are. I found out that there's just a lot of evangelize. Yeah, I found out that there was a lot of work to be done inside the party, and that's good too. Yeah. So like if the Pahtay is going to attract a bunch of half libertarians that don't really understand stuff, then all they're doing is collecting low hanging fruit for me to then get in front of and have great conversations with. There's a lot of utility in that, and there's a lot of really good activism, and you can create a lot of actual libertarians out of that low-hanging fruit. That's awesome. That's good work. Yeah, go do it. That's fun. Like when
how I got involved in the party.
When I stood next to Kathy Glass on the debate stage and pointed out that, you know, her wanting to take over the Texas Army, because the Texas state has its own 3-branch military, by the way, and she and her website, the things that she was running for governor to do was to take over and use that military to close the border and to prevent illegal immigration in Texas. It's like, what are we doing here? And so, you know, I stand on the stage and all I do is say that, and I'm like, that's not a libertarian position. And then a bunch of people vote for her anyway.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
I know. I agree with you. That's how I got sucked into the party in the first place. Was somebody found me from the local area online because I was already, you know, but he brought me a beer and we talked about it, and I was like, sat there for about an hour, and I'm still like, no, you know, I don't want to get involved in party politics. Like I don't vote. I'm not gonna vote. Like it's not a. And then at the end, he said to me, I need an anarchist to get these libertarians to be libertarians. And if I can say, if nothing else, and this might sound bad, when I started, the Libertarian Party here in Knox County apparently had the biggest LP meeting in the country. It doesn't anymore. Because my friend Dan and I became my producer. They would say the stupidest shit. Like one guy had the idea, you know, I was talking to my cousin and we came up with this idea. What do you guys think about it? Where everyone has to go into a lottery and serve as a state representative for blah, blah, blah. And I was like, dude, that's how can you but that was having those conversations in their little group chat of the members in this area. It really did. You should separate the wheat and the chaff, to use another religious terminology, separate them, because those people don't belong calling themselves libertarians. And if you have to fight it out, then fight it out. But they should know, that was what I wanted to do, was I wanted to make the Libertarian Party more libertarian. I don't care how many numbers there are. Would I want everybody to be libertarian? Yes, of course, I would want everybody to live according to that. But I don't get to tell people that, and they don't get to tell me that libertarianism is not what it is. And so they need to find another place to be, or they need to learn. And, you know, he learned real quick, and I'll, to his credit, you know, he was like, well, at the end, he's like, well, you know, I'm just telling you what my cousin said. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. You know, save face. That's cool. But, you know, those are great conversations to have. And I think that when someone's already calling themselves a thing, then it's easier to say, well, wait a second, though, that's not the thing, right? You're calling yourself this, but these are libertarian principles, and those things don't match up. So you're more likely to get someone, I think, who will change their positions and grow and come.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
So I think that's great. Yeah, it works beautifully a lot of the time.
I don't want to take full credit by any means, but there were certainly a lot of people that when I first got involved with the party to run that campaign, I would not have called them consistently libertarian individuals. And then by the time I was done, I still have a large group of friends that have come out of that process extremely principled and consistent. So it's definitely worth time for sure. And out of it, you get some great friends too. There's some great friendships and activities that go on there. Anyway, so
I mean, it's like Rothbard had said, you know, you hold the line. You don't talk about freeing the slaves a week from now or a year from now. You free the slaves today. And so that's that sort of radical messaging. That's what gets people's attention and tells them that you're different from what they're like. Don't you want to be different? Don't you want to be different than this bullshit that happens? Don't you want to offer people an actual alternative way that they can live their lives and be free now? So I definitely think that, messaging should be, it can, within person to person, but radical still. Like Harry Brown was sort of a master of that when he, Bush and Gore, I think it was who was running. And he said, had the picture because he was running for the LP. And he's like, would these two men be better off for having spent time in prison for doing cocaine? Do you believe that? That's a radical message, but it's couched in a very palatable way. So you do you. I've always told people, like, I've actually had people message me before and say, so-and-so who, is saying this or that, and they didn't like it. That's not a good look. And I'm like, look, I am not the word police. I do things my way. Other people do things their way. And as long as it's that same message, I don't really care how you do it. Like, that's up to you. People reach different, people who are looking, and I'm not going to police people and be like the prags and you have to say things this way because we really don't want people to know that, they don't really believe it.
Jim, another super chat for $2. Thank you again. He says, I'm not a libertarian because I'm pro-rape and pro-murder, gatekeeper. Yeah,
right on.
Yeah, you got it. And then Chad in the chat said something that really made me realize why I have a bad gut reaction to people that are happy to be participating with the party. He said, exactly, power addicts trying to find an easy way in and up. Yeah. That's what it is. I think that's why my gut sees that as a red flag. If you're not there to have fun being a politician, and if you have a healthy disrespect for the party and the politics and the process and its existence in the world, if you don't have that, then you're probably in some way attracted to that power. And if you do have that, that's a good sign that you're not looking for that power and you're not attracted to it. So
yeah.
Okay.
I don't want a seat at the table. I want to turn the table over.
Yes.
That's not what the party is about.
So I think we only have a couple more things. I wanted you to talk about something that you posted recently about kids and forcing kids to share. Do you want me to read your post, or do you want to?
Sure, read it. I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, she says, forcing kids to share is neither... No, that's not you. Forcing kids to share is neither sharing nor teaching them generosity. It is teaching them that the powerful get to push their good ideas on the less powerful. It's an early lesson in force in the name of the common good and lays the foundation of political violence. Hashtag kids. Hashtag parenting. Hashtag grow peace. Is that good? Was that better?
That's pretty good. I like it. Yeah. I got some great...
Let's talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, there were some great conversations to be had under that. And, about altruism and about, we got to force people. And it really kind of plays into everything we were talking about with the party, too, is that, force is lazy parenting. Honestly, if you, like that's, and so force is lazy libertarianism as well, if you can call it that.
Lazy governance.
Lazy governance. There you go. Yeah. And it took me a while to understand that. As you know, due to your influence and influence of others, I was an authoritarian parent when I started out. I came in this little package of authoritarian mom. And then I became a libertarian, and I started saying that wasn't good, but I hadn't really come around to the understanding that I have now, which is I feel more like a coach to my kids than their master. And, it took me a while to get that. And I know I still have tendencies sometimes, and I have to apologize to my kids pretty frequently. But, so I, getting to that point where you recognize that forcing someone to do something, it might get you compliance. It doesn't get you that heart change that you want, especially in your kids. Or you're trying to teach them generosity and you're going to be so ungenerous with their property or whatever. Like, even something I did before when I was still an authoritarian parent, I didn't make them share even then, because I thought, well, I wouldn't, when my friends come over, I don't share everything I have with them. And so why should the kids have to do that? Especially if, like, my son had a friend who wasn't gentle with his Transformers, and my son's Transformers were very important to him. So I would say to him, okay, anything that you don't want to share, let's put away in the closet, and then leave the other things that he can play with out. And that worked beautifully. And he learned to be generous. And he also learned that when people don't take care of your shit, you don't have to give it to them. Like, it's yours. You don't have to let people destroy it. So I think that's a really hard thing for a lot of people, even in the libertarian sphere, who, still are working on that, to come to, is that it doesn't teach them generosity. One lady said, well, how are you doesn't that make them like narcissists if they don't have to share? And I was like, why would force encourage sharing? Why would force encourage generosity? All you're doing is kicking up a fight and teaching them that you're bigger and you have more power than them and they have no say. In my experience of life, that makes me hold on to things tighter. When people try to tell me what to do, I fight. Yeah. Like, I don't like to be told what to do, especially with my own crap. So you're either teaching them you're disingenuous when you give them things that it's not really theirs, or and the difference is, if I gave my kids something with the caveat, like, I'm going to give you this, but you have to share it with your brother or whatever. That's different. You gave them with it condition.
Yeah.
But when something is theirs, like, what do you want to teach them? Do you believe in property, right? This will always come back to my conservative friends who have a hard time with that, because they feel like if you're not hard on your kids, then they're not getting that real deep, like, principles. They're going to end up being libtards or something. And like, when did having to force your kids become love? Like, love doesn't necessarily have to be, it's not like that. Like, I don't have to force my kids to do things. My son's really responsible. People who meet him and then argue with me about these things, or meet my daughter and argue with me about these things, I'm like, but here's your examples right here. These kids, you love them. You say how respectful they are and how pleasant they are to be around. And yet then you act like I'm some kind of crazy person because I say, they should have some autonomy in their own lives. So.
And a lot of this stuff works itself out. So I did an entire sort of lesson in the Peaceful Parenting University was on property rights of your kids' property and your property and the property in the house, and how I think communism doesn't work even in the family at home. I think it's just all around terrible, and how every single thing in my house is owned by a person. There's no community property. And how many disputes that just constantly resolves. And
right.
And it also makes us be more rigorous and respectful of our children in general, which, like you were just saying, teaches them nothing but the right lessons that you want them to learn. And a good example of that is I bought a new bicycle for my son because he's growing up recently. And this time, we had some problems with his usage of his last bicycle, and so this time we actually made a contract, a sales contract for the use of for the ownership of the bicycle, and I agreed that that if he would not ride in the street and would tell us where he was going when he left the house, and would not leave his bicycle in the middle of the driveway where I couldn't park, basic agreements on
right.
My property at my house, at least, then I would buy him a bike and give him a bike, and the bike would become his and his rightful full-on ownership. And then after we signed the contract and he was enjoying his new bike, I said, okay, well, it's time to sell the old bike. And he said, no, I'm going to keep that. I was like, damn it, I forgot to put it in the contract to sell the old bike. And so what did I do? I didn't make it happen. I didn't, in the middle of the night, like, hide his bike and sell it when he wasn't looking and hope he didn't notice. I didn't force him to sell the bike. I just waited. I just had some patience. I let some time pass, and And time fixes a lot of this stuff. Time takes the pressure off. Because Atlas is feeling very pressured because Dad wants to sell my old bicycle and he's emotionally attached to it. It was his first bicycle and that was important to him. And me overriding his will on that would have been damaging to him, certainly, and would have reduced his self-confidence in himself and his self-ownership and his property. It would have
trust in you.
Yes, our relationship, all
really
kinds
undermine
of stuff.
that.
And so, it took up more space in my garage than I was comfortable with, but I made the mistake of not negotiating for that. Right. I took responsibility for that. So the bike stayed in the garage. And then every few days I would bring it up. Hey man, I noticed you haven't rode your old bike at all since you got the new one. How are you liking the new bike? It's pretty cool, right? Well, you're not really using the old one. It's kind of taking up space in my garage. What do you think about selling it? Oh, no, I don't want to sell the bike yet. Okay. That's fine. That's totally fine. 3 days later, hey, boy, did you see that new toy on Amazon that you wanted? It's like $30. How much do you think you could sell your old bike for? I wonder if you could get enough money to buy that new toy.
Right.
And so we looked up how much we thought he could sell his bike for. It turned out to be only $15 and he needed $30. And I said, okay, son, I'll make you a deal. If you sell your bike, I will match the amount of money that you get for whoever you sell it to. So if you get $15 for that bike, I will give you an additional $15. And then you'll have $30 and you can buy the toy. Boom, deal made. He was on, he sold his bike. The bike is out of my garage. It cost me $15. My oversight to put that in the deal to buy the new bike cost me $15. Right. My son's self-ownership, which is priceless to me, only cost me $15 for that lesson. That's how I look at it. I would pay that over and over again. And, he's secure. Yeah. He's secure in his self-ownership, in his rights, in his property, and our relationship got stronger instead of weaker because of it.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that parents don't, because we're in society, American culture, people are basically taught by so many people that, you don't have to live. It's the people say they don't, it's that do as I do, not as I, is that right? Do as I say, not as I do. That's how most people actually parent, even if they say that's not what they want to do, is that they want the kids to do what they say. And they don't want to develop the relationship where the kid starts to, want to do that for themselves. And it's something I did with my kids when they were little too. And people have been so shocked at how willing they are to let go of things. And even their artwork, which is really important in our house, my kids throw it in the trash. I don't throw that away. We put it on the fridge, whatever. There's some I keep if I think it's really special. And I'm like, can I keep this? But a lot of times we enjoy it for a little bit and then they take it off the fridge when they were younger and it goes in the trash. Like they do that because they learned that, everything has a life cycle and you can't keep everything. But that was developed when they were 2 and 3 years old and 4 years old. And we would sit down in their rooms and go through toys because they outgrow a lot of their little things very quickly. And we would talk about it. Okay, this book is for little kids. This book is, you know how to read these words now. This book is really for little kids. Would you like to give it to maybe a little kid that could enjoy it like you did? And if they said no, then I'm like, okay, no pressure. It went to the side. And usually they would end up the next time giving it away or thinking about it and giving it away. Because when they realize that they have power and that you're not going to undermine it, you build that trust with them. And then they feel really big. Like kids want to grow up, right? That's what they're here to do. And I think a lot of times parents, they think their kid should be, they have to force the maturity that you have at whatever age you are onto your little child who just needs a little time to mature. Like you said, that emotional attachment to that object, his reason wasn't, they're still developing, making their emotions subject to their reason. And there are things sometimes I'm emotionally attached to, and it's okay. Like give yourself a minute. If I'd give myself a minute, why can't I give my child time to grow through it? It's really sad because people really feel like that sort of, very forceful parenting style. Like they're proud of it. I've had people tell me, my kids don't talk to me like, I'm not going to, he going to get his face slapped, whatever. I mean, that's my impression of my old self or whatever. But my friends, would tell me like, yeah, I had him up against the wall and telling him, you will not talk to me. This is my house. And it's like, it's such a sad thing to think about now, because you realize that's not asserting your place in their life as a parent. That's undermining it. That's teaching them exactly the wrong thing. And do you want them to, is it okay to do to you when you're 80 and you're in their house and you do something they don't like? Is that okay? If it's not okay to do to you, then to an elderly person, why is it okay to do to a child?
Yeah.
Like,
yep. And what's another good example of letting them have self-ownership and things working out way better?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I have one. Go ahead.
Sure.
What?
No, go ahead. That's fine. I was just going to say, like, choosing clothes and things like that. Like with my daughter, I would always allow her, or my son, I'd teach them until they could make good choices themselves. And then once they knew how to make those good choices, those became their responsibility. I don't tell my daughter at 10 years old now she has to wear a coat when she goes outside. She knows. She knows it's cold. When she was 3 and she kept making poor choices, and I had to suffer the consequences of her being cold. That was different. But now she's 10 and she goes out without a jacket. She doesn't complain to me about not having a jacket because she knows she chose. She feels very responsible for that.
So there's things that are often repeated around my house as answers to questions. So one of them is, well, it's your body, or well, it's your mouth. This usually comes up when it's like the topic of vulgar language has been a recent thing over the past 4 to 5 months, and my son discovered the word fuck from me.
No.
Yeah. And it has been just wall to wall, fuck that, fuck off. Like he'll play Minecraft and just, boy, he'll cuss those creepers. Woo! Woo! And, because
he's
it's
a smart kid too.
He's trying to figure out how to use the word, and so he's using it way too much. And so we occasionally just try and talk to him like, hey man, that's one of those words that's really stronger and it means more the less you use it. If you save that word for the really important times. And the only other lesson that we've ever really talked about with profanity is that the thing that you don't want to do is use the profane words to hurt other people. Like you don't want to try and put other people down or talk crap about them or use them in hurtful ways. Like using them in ways to describe your feelings can be really therapeutic and useful, and to express yourself, okay. And then now we're trying to move into this phase where we're trying to say, okay, like the less you use it, the more impactful they are. If you use it all the time, it's kind of like, kind of like gross. It's kind of like too much. It's kind of annoying. But we didn't like watch our mouth and like, we're going to wash your mouth out with soap and shit like that. Like, which, I laugh about now as something that was insane, but that happened to me. Like that was done to me. That's insane. But here's how it works out in the real world. I have these talks with him. I'm like, hey, there are some people out there that choose to become upset when they hear someone, especially a little kid, say fuck.
Yeah.
They choose to become, and I pick my words carefully because I'm trying to teach them the reality of their emotions, which is we choose how we feel. Other people don't trigger us. Other people don't cause us to feel certain ways.
You made me feel this way. Yeah.
We do not say that, because that's not how it works, right? And so I'll say there are people out there that choose to be pretty upset and uncomfortable when they hear people say fuck, especially when they hear little kids say fuck. They just really choose to not like that. And he didn't believe me. He didn't really have context for that. And so one day he was playing up the street at a neighbor's house, and it's just a normie average family with a couple kids, and he's playing with their kids in the driveway. Fuck this and fucking blah blah blah, and it's just like he's just f-bombing, just carpet bombing the neighborhood with the word fuck, just like. Woo! And
like it was Iraq in there.
yeah. Like he was in the military, and he was a sailor. Like he was just f-bombing all over the place. And the mother of that family said, Atlas, we don't say that here. What did he say? What did he respond with? Oh, well, it's my mouth. I can say what I want. Which is asserting property ownership, which is awesome. Right. What did she say? Yes. Well, this is my house, and we don't talk like that here. Asserting her property ownership. Right. So my kids are learning how to interact with people around ownership and property rights. It's everything I want. And so he comes home kind of upset and disturbed because he wasn't allowed to be, over there in the driveway playing with their kids anymore. And he's bothered by it. And I'm like, son, remember when I told you? Like, hey, there are some people that choose to they don't like that. They choose to not like when people use certain words. So you have a choice to make. Like, if you're going to play over there in their house, you can choose to not say that word while you're over there. And I'm sure they'll be fine letting you come back and play. Or you can choose to not play at their house anymore and say, fuck all you want. And he's like, oh,
so that's how it works.
It's beautiful. Yeah. It is so beautiful. Yeah.
It's what a great lesson in negotiation too. Like, that's it's a real skill that's lost in a lot of the, places. I know I'm probably not the world's best at it because I didn't grow up learning to negotiate those things. And so I think that's wonderful because really what it all should be is a negotiation. It's not that you're a bad person for using a certain word. That doesn't make you a bad person. But what it is it's them asserting, like you said, with their property. Well, that's offensive to us here, and you're welcome to be here, but not if you use those words. That's, that's a negotiation that he learned firsthand. And like he said to her, I love that he said to her with, without guile, like, it's my mouth and I can say what I want because
you don't get to control my mouth. Yeah, this is mine. Yeah. Right.
But, that she said, well, this is my house and we don't talk, whatever. So I think that's great. It's really, and it just shows to me too, like when I was younger, I would not have talked back, to someone's parent, like that talk back. And just the fact that, it's a real testament to how he's respected in his own home, that he's allowed to say things. Yeah. And that's, something that I've come to do with my daughter especially, and now my son, is that, they're allowed to say things that I don't like. Yeah. And sometimes the things they say hurt me, but
no, they don't.
So I get hurt. I allow myself to be hurt.
You choose to be hurt.
Sometimes they maybe could choose their words a little differently, but that's humans, right? But I want them do I want them to talk to me or not? That's always the thing. Like, I would rather have those conversations that are difficult than to have them not talk to me and just build resentment and me not be able to change or them not be able to change or whatever. Or them to have, I had so many situations that I came across when I was younger that I could have really used my parents' insight into, but I didn't trust my parents with that. I felt more able to do the things in my life that I wanted to do than I probably was a lot of times. But I had been, my childhood was wild. And so, there was an undermining of the relationship for my parents. And so I didn't go to them when I really could have benefited from having that. And I don't want my kids to ever feel like they are in a situation that they can't talk to me about. I feel like my 18-year-old son, like, we've gotten a lot closer because, he's able to come to me and say things and talk about things. And I've told him before, like, I want you to talk to me. I'm always going to listen, and I'm not your boss, right? Like, I want to be able to provide you with guidance. But of course you can make the decisions that you want. He's been an adult for a couple of years now. So
yeah, I guess
as far as I'm concerned,
I guess just to kind of bring it back around to what we were talking about with parenting earlier, with time fixing a lot of things. The last story I can tell happened this morning, and I think you'll have some examples that'll back this up as well. Today, my daughter still has to go to the cancer clinic once a month to have her blood checked to make sure it hasn't come back or whatever. And so we still have the negotiations that I've talked about on this channel before, and that I talked about at the Peaceful Parenting University videos and stuff like that, where it's a lot of preparation goes into making negotiations days before the medical stuff happens. And a perfect example of the time thing is this morning they had a clinic day, and my daughter woke my wife up, and I woke up without them knowing. I was sitting there, not yet awake fully yet, and my daughter said, "Hey, I want to go play on the laptop or whatever." My wife was like, "No, we got to go to the clinic this morning. Remember, we had a deal." My daughter said, just matter-of-factly, and this made me smile against my pillow over here, she just said, "No, not going," and she just turned around and walked out of the room.
I have altered the deal. Pray I do not alter it any further.
And, any normal parent would respond to that by immediately asserting what was going to happen. And I'm, of course, just smiling my ass off that my daughter is so confident in her self-ownership that she would say something like that to my wife. That is awesome. And it wasn't like with attitude. It was just a statement of fact about what she was not going to be doing that day. It's great. And
no, madam, I do not think so.
Exactly. And so what was our response? Well, it was just to say, okay. Now, why would we just say, okay? Because obviously we have an appointment coming up in several hours. And obviously it's important that she gets these, that she has these clinic days to her lifelong health. But saying okay and just dropping it for the moment does so much. It lets her exist as a person and say no. To say no, to be able to say no, is to be able to assert your existence in the world and to own yourself. And so my wife just said, okay, well, maybe we'll talk about it in a little bit. And that was it. And it was just totally let go.
It dissipates that.
Yes.
That friction. It just dissipates. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, 30 minutes later, you bring it back up. Hey, you remember, and you start in with the deal. Hey, you remember that deal we made where we're going to get Whataburger and then go swimming afterwards? Do you not want to get Whataburger and go swimming? You can start to walk back through the negotiation that you already had for the deal that we already had. Turns out, she had forgotten about those things, and she really did want to do those things. So she was happy to go to clinic. So we got what we needed out of the situation as parents, as good parents watching out for our kid, and our daughter got her self-ownership. I tell these stories. I tell these stories because so many people think that this type of parenting is completely impossible. And look, if we can do it with cancer treatments, nobody has any fucking excuse.
Yeah. I remember you had said that on my show. I think it was like your first or second time on my show, my old show. And, my response to that is it's because you've built that relationship, and people they want to take that easy way out to just force their kids, because that building the relationship part is difficult, and it takes time, and it takes thought, and it takes you meaning what you say and living by your own principles, because you don't teach your kids to be principled by not being principled yourself. Like that doesn't, you don't teach people responsibility by giving them no responsibility and not making them responsible. So I'm really always shocked when people who, they talk about wanting to raise, good, solid kids and everything. But what they mean is like kids who are obedient and compliant. And that's not a virtue that I want my kids to just feel like they need to be obedient and compliant to people who are in authority over them, and that's a real change that I think a lot of people just, they never think about it in those terms. And maybe it's really religiously driven often, not always, but I know for me, I grew up in, like it was Christian. My parents were Christian. And then I was a Christian when I was, such an authoritarian parent. And there's a lot of sort of hardline stuff in that, I don't know, in the Bible, but also what people teach through that you're the authority, and that they have to learn to respect, and respect to them is obedience, only obedience. They have to learn to respect you so that they can respect God. And so there's a lot of pressure on you to feel like, well, if I don't make my child be good, he won't be good. And then bad things will happen to him and he won't, whatever. So I love that example you just gave and how, wise it was of your wife to just, okay. And then, because kids do forget, but I know with especially my daughter, who is very strong-willed, if you just
wonder where she gets that from. Where?
Right? Who knows? But yeah, that if you don't just say okay and like let them have that moment and dissipate it, the kids forget those things. And my daughter would dig in if I would have said, no, we're not, you're, what are you talking about? Are you crazy? Like she would have just dug in. And then no matter what I said, well, what about the burgers? And what about the swimming? She'd have been like, hell no, I don't care. I don't want to do that anymore. It doesn't appeal to her reason. It appeals to her emotion. The rider and the elephant, it appeals to the elephant, and the elephant wants to dig in and wants to fight for their position. The rider is what you need to contact. And he's a little bit harder to get through if you get the elephant running. So yeah, I've learned lots of lessons the hard way with my kids. and
I can't overstate the importance. And this is probably the last thing we have time to talk about because we've been going for a while, and I want to be respectful of your time. So I can't overstate the importance of letting the pressure dissipate by just taking time with your kids. Yeah. And you feel pressure as a parent from all of these sources that should be irrelevant. Let me list some of the irrelevant sources of pressure. The chick down the street who got butthurt over my son saying fuck. She probably thinks we're bad parents. I don't care. Irrelevant. Irrelevant on the scope of teaching my son self-ownership and self-control and negotiation around property rights. She's irrelevant. Let's say that my wife's negotiations with my daughter to go to the clinic had failed, and no matter what my wife said and reminded her about the deal, my daughter still said no. What would we have done? Would we have forced it? Would we have made it happen? Well, no. Let's slow down and let's back up. What if can't we just reschedule for the next day? It's a blood draw clinic visit. What, maybe, and let's say that fails too. Well, maybe we reschedule once or twice more, let's just give it a few days. And those few days that we take are just constant opportunities for new negotiations because kids always want things and you can always negotiate around things that they want. So every additional day that we delay hurts her treatment almost none at all, but gives us opportunities to negotiate better. So, but we feel pressured in the moment. Oh my God, I'm going to be a bad parent if I reschedule her blood test. Like, this is her health care. It's immediate and I have to force it and I have to make it happen. Otherwise I'm not doing my job and I'm a bad parent. Guys, just take a breath, slow down, think about things, the real impact of things, what's really important, the lesson of self-ownership and agency and existence and the right to say no in the world and to control the things that comes out of your mouth. Or satisfying the butthurt busybody up the street. Like, if we just slow down and think about it in perspective, it becomes super chill and non-stressful.
Right. And you're really prioritizing the right people in your life because, if a lot of people, and I've been guilty of this myself, will end up being nicer to people outside their family than they are to the people in their family because you don't want to look bad to other people, but that's having your priorities really, really backwards. And so what you should want to, like, there was a situation where my daughter, when she was 4, one night out of the blue decided she didn't like potatoes anymore. She'd always liked potatoes fine. I made the dish I'd made the week before and she loved it. Didn't like it anymore. And I thought, just eat the potatoes. And come on, just eat the potatoes. And she's like, are you forcing me? I was like, she's like, force is wrong, Mama. And I'm like, okay, get out of here. But she brought it to my attention. Like, I needed a reminder. But like, just to not just totally disregard the fact that you've taught them things. Don't you want them to do that? And like, you want to have that relationship sweet in your home, and you want to build that trust with your kids. And if you're prioritizing butthurt people down the street or whatever, like, that's not really great. Now, we can teach our kids how to, be in the world and be respectful and things, and, just kind. But that doesn't mean that they should not be who they are and be what you teach them to be. And all of those, things. You want to really make those relationships the priority in your life. And I think that teaches them too to make their families a priority to their lives as well.
My kids' version of that, "Are you forcing me?" is they'll say something like, they won't ask it as a question. They'll just say, "Oh, it's my body."
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And from my perspective, it's like, oh, holy shit. Yeah, I taught them that. It is their body. What am I doing? And it happens in the other way too. And it's super useful. It's like we were at the pool today. I can come up with these examples because I'm with my kids all the time, and it's super easy. It's part of our relationship. And it's like my daughter wanted to ride around the swimming pool on my back, and I was not feeling it at that moment. And I said, "No, I don't want to do that." She's like, "Why not?" I was like, "Yeah, it's my body. I don't want to do it right now." She's like, "Oh, okay." And she just, whatever. It's like, it's so simple. It looks really hard from the outside. Anyway, I'll stop talking about parenting. We've been going on forever.
No, it makes sense though. Like, we believe that property rights are important because they determine who owns things, and so it causes less friction, because then when there's a question about what should be done with a thing, we go, well, I own this and you do not, and therefore it's going to go this way. It makes that friction and less, between anybody. And so why wouldn't it be valuable in a family?
Yeah. Yep. And then I guess the secret is that the big secret is that all of these techniques we've talked about today work on adults too.
Yeah.
It will make your relationships with grown-ups stronger too. If somebody I care about says no, and I just give it time instead of forcing it into an argument or a conflict, works too.
Right.
All of this stuff works on grown-ups too. It works on real life. So anyway, yeah. Awesome. Sherry, I've really enjoyed having you on. I hope you enjoyed being here.
Thanks. I've really enjoyed being on. Thank you.
Yeah, we got some bitching about the party and some good parenting discussion. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed listening. Thanks for participating in the comments. Thanks, Chad. I read your stories and your comments. That was good stuff. Thanks, Decompiler. I see you over there. All right, guys. Well, we'll leave it there for now. And, thanks for watching. Where can people find you, Sherry?
Oh, all the social media places. I don't have really a show right now. I do produce It's Too Late with Alan Mosley. I'm his producer on the show. And but Odysee, Facebook, Twitter, all Minds, Mastodon. Is that the one I'm on, your little 2D thing?
Voluntary.world. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep running that much longer.
It's not very active, MeWe, all those.
Yeah, we'll see.
Twitter.
We have, I don't want to announce it, but I want to tease it. You and I and Christian have a big deal that we're working on. And it is going to be awesome.
Fantastic.
And something everyone watching will probably want to be a part of. And I think that's all I'm going to say. It's going to help a lot of people, and it's going to be really cool, and it's going to be fun. Yeah. And that's all I'm going to say. Okay. All right. So, should I say the name, or are we? We're not really done with the name.
Yeah.
Are we?
We're going to give it time, Patrick.
Yeah. Yes, we're going to give it time. There we go. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. I will see you next time. I almost said peace, love, and anarchy. I don't have a sign out for Disenthrall.
You've been disenthralled!